Cody Garbrandt reveals that he's been sober for 2 years. Cody posted this to his Instagram. He wrote, "I was never addicted to one thing. I was addicted to filling a void within myself with other things other than my own love. 2 years and going strong. Hashtag sober." Dominic Cruz commented, "Cody, all love. Strong words, champ." Cody replied, "Thank you, legend." Charles Oliveira does not believe Dustin Poirier or Arman Tsarukyan will defeat Islam Makhachev. Speaking to MMAfighting.com, Charles said every striker that faces Islam is going to be the same thing. We'll take you down and have bigger chances at winning. But we're talking about MMA. In one hand, one strike that lands can definitely get you the victory. Dustin Poirier has shown that in his last fight. He's shown that many times already. He has heavy hands and hits hard, so he definitely can knock him out. But I think Islam remains his champion. Arman is a guy who takes you down and holds you there the entire time. No way. It's not a fight he can win. Of course, I've just said this and I can't backtrack. We're talking about MMA, and it's very unpredictable. A guy closes his eyes and throws a hand that lands, you're knocked out. He throws a kick that lands, you shoot for a takedown and end up in a submission. MMA is unpredictable, but I think Islam is way more experienced, has more focus, more hunger, and is much stronger than Arman. Ciryl Gane tells a fan that he will be fighting at UFC Paris in September.
Merci beaucoup. Vas-y.
Septembre.
Septembre. UFC Paris.
Paris.
Contre qui? Vas-y.
On le prend, on sera là.
Allez, bonne journée.
Sean O'Malley and Jorge Masvidal discuss Islam versus Dustin Poirier. Jorge believes Dustin is going to pull it off. Jorge also discusses the biggest regret of his MMA career.
He's a big underdog, and that'd be a fairy tale story if he gets it done, bro.
Especially against, somebody that stylistically is not his best matchups. The guys that wrestle grapple. As everybody knows, Dustin's my brother and teammate for over 10 years, so I'm 100% going for Dustin. But I know this is a tough fight for him. I know it's not gonna be no walk in the park, but man, I just have this feeling he pulls it off, bro. He just makes that home run. He catches Islam, he puts him down, he hits him while he's on the ground, fights over, and he walks away with that belt on his shoulder. That's what I'm going for.
What's one of your biggest regrets, if any, in your career so far?
It's a regret. It's also not a regret. I contemplate a lot. When I got the call to fight Usman on 6-day notice, me and the UFC had been going back because I wanted more pay-per-view money. I wanted a bigger distribution on the pay-per-views that I was bringing in, and they weren't really budging on that. They wanted to give me more. Oh, we'll give you more on this side, but here we're gonna have to this and chop, and I'm like, nah, I don't want that deal. If I bring in money, I want to get paid money. If I sell 100,000 pay-per-views, then don't give me. But if I sell 1 million pay-per-views, I want to get paid. So I was going on for a while, and then finally, it was like 7 weeks out, 6 weeks out, and we come to a halt on the negotiations, and I'm like, whatever, bro. I guess it's not meant to be, And Gilbert Burns got corona, so boom, his got pulled out of the card, and then the UFC's calling me. They really don't have no choice, They're like, what do you want? I'll tell you what I want. I want the same deal that I was asking before, but just better now. Because I got 6 days to do it, and I got 20 pounds to go. So I went to warn him, and I fought for everything I could. I made more money than I ever did in my whole career because I made sure that everything was right. And going forward, it stayed exactly the same, belt or no belt for me. My pay-per-view threshold was very good, I didn't get the decision I wanted, obviously, in that fight. And that always stayed with me. Like, man, how about if I had trained these 7 weeks,
kept training,
like I was fighting for a title, it would have been completely different because I really wasn't doing much. That's one that I think about a lot.
Darren Till plans to knock out Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and then aim to fight Jake Paul. Speaking to the Schmo, Darren said, man, they've just got to make a statement, a KO, win the crowd over and do so good that I see their skill and I'm impressed by them and want to make a big fight with them happen. When I do win, when I knock Chavez Jr. out, I'm going to get on the mic or whatever, watch Jake's fight, and I'll be right there in the mix. I'm going to hold him to that fight now. Him fighting Tommy Fury. Him fighting anyone else. All this McGregor. I'm the same size as him, so let's see. Most probably jumping into the ring after the winner with a pint, just jumping in. I probably will do that. Dana White had some major fight announcements today for UFC Abu Dhabi. Dana announced the return of Nick Diaz, and also Tony Ferguson is now fighting at welterweight.
Fight night, Abu Dhabi, Etihad Arena, Saturday, August 3rd, in the main event. You have the best prospect in the bantamweight division in number 10 ranked Umar Nurmagomedov, taking on number 2 ranked Corey Sandhagen in what is the number 1 contender fight at 135 pounds. In the 5-round co-main event, Nick Diaz is returning to the welterweight division to fight number 14 ranked Vicente Luque in what is certain to be an absolute war. Number 4 ranked Chito Vera is returning after his title fight against O'Malley in March to take on former world champion and number 6 ranked Davison Figueiredo. Figueiredo is undefeated since moving up to 135 and is coming off a finish over Cody Garbrandt at UFC 300. Number 7 ranked Mackenzie Dern is facing number 10 ranked Lupe Godinez in a fight that features 2 of the most active strikers in the 115-pound women's division. And opening the main card is a fight between the legend Tony Ferguson, moving up to 170 pounds, and what could be his final fight to take on Michael Chiesa. Ladies and gentlemen, August 3rd from Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi. I will see you there.
According to Ariel Helwani, Nick Diaz originally pushed to fight GSP, Colby Covington, Michael Venom Page, and then Kevin Holland.
Nick was initially pushing for a GSP fight. Didn't come to fruition. He was then pushing for a Colby Covington fight at UFC 300. Didn't come to fruition. He then, after MVP's win and debut at 299, pushed for that fight on the June 29th Conor McGregor card, UFC 303. Didn't come to fruition. He then pushed for Kevin Holland on the June 29th card. Thought that that was going to be the one. But as you know, didn't come to fruition. Kevin Holland is fighting Michal Oleksiejczuk this weekend in Newark.
So Dana White and the UFC are receiving some backlash over this card. Many people are upset that Nick and Tony are on the same card, fighting in the same weight class, at similar stages in their careers, and aren't fighting each other. On X, Aaron Bronstetter wrote, one sentiment that I tend to agree with is that Nick Diaz versus Tony Ferguson would have made more sense than their respective matchups. Dylan Dana says, so no one thought about Nick Diaz versus Tony Ferguson? And Randy Costa says, I feel like Ferguson versus Diaz makes way more sense, no? The UFC posted the fight posters to their Instagram. To read off some of the top comments, they should have just made Nick versus Tony and Luque versus Chiesa. For the love of God, let Nick and Tony retire. Nick is way past his prime. Stupid decision. I'm truly convinced that the UFC uses an AI random matchup generator tool to make these fights. Cause WTF, Tony versus Nick Diaz is the perfect matchup. Get Nick Diaz and Tony Ferguson out of the organization. Tony versus Nick instead, please. And Nick Diaz and Tony Ferguson on the same card. I hate you, Dana. And that's going to wrap it up for the news. Thanks for watching. For daily MMA news and content, subscribe to Full Mount MMA and click the bell icon to be notified when we post videos. Here are the 3 top comments from last video. These comments are in reference to Joaquin Buckley's video message to Cub Swanson. The first one's from Nah4215. It says Joaquin Buckley never has anything intelligent to say. The second one's from Zach H420. It says thank you guys for cutting Buckley off mid-sentence. That was cringe as f***. And the final one's from Chris Dank 741. It says Buckley saying Cubs never sniffed a title or fought anyone good is the highest level of lack of self-awareness. Those were the 3 top comments from last video. If you want to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. And if you missed yesterday's news, click the video on screen right now to get caught up.